Adam, the advice usually given to new writers, and I imagine that includes songwriters, is write about something that you know. Listening to your, I think you call them confessions in Tell Me Everything and Quarterback, you might imagine that you don't have the best of luck with the ladies. But that aside, how do you set about creating a balance between autobiography and, for want of a better word, the poetry of your lyrics, and keeping some parts of your life private?
All right. I think what I attempt to do in every song is communicate some life experience or a composite of life experiences in the most compelling, engaging, truthful way. And I do it all at the same time while also trying to inject whatever transcendent value I can into the song form. And that's by using language as cleverly as I can, or as confessionally as I can, or using vulgarity that's just at the cusp of vulgarity, not to offend necessarily, but for affect. I'm fascinated with stories, and I'm dyslexic, so like just talking as much as possible as a kid was like one of the greatest forms of apprenticeships for me.
So you're dealing with it.
Exactly, you know, and essentially I just want to make it entertaining. I want to do for others what was done for me in song, which is like compel me, engage me, fascinate me, irritate me, make me provoked with thought.
You do well. I mean, I must say I really enjoyed listening to your CD, and I don't always enjoy listening to CDs by new performers. Let's go back a little bit. You were born in Montreal and raised mainly by your mother Suzanne, all around the world. I'm sort of fascinated. Where did you live, and what are your lasting impressions of those places?
I lived in Montreal, Los Angeles, the south of France, Paris, London, Greece, New York, Acapulco, and visited many, many more places than that. And I find that traveling is probably my second most favorite pleasure in the world other than music. And the thing that it's given me more than anything is just an interest in people, architecture, food, booze, music, language, learning as many of them as possible. I speak French and Spanish and English, and a little bit of Greek. And
you can't beat travel for education. Don't care what they say.
No, you cannot. Absolutely not.
Which leads to a logical question. Where is home actually these days?
I refer to France as my home, you know, Paris, which is where my mother still lives.
Yeah. So how often do you get back there?
I get back there as much as possible these days.
Which is not an answer. Do you manage to make it back at least once a year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I go there at least twice a year. Yeah, absolutely. And recently, just because of how the French seem to have embraced this new little record of mine, I get a chance to go even more often than twice a year. It's great.
It's a great city. You've described a fascinatingly bohemian upbringing. You remarked that as a child you were constantly being woken up by drunken poets and loud music and all the rest of it. At the time, I mean, it sounds now that you might have had a chance to reflect on it, but at the time, was it actually exciting and bohemian, or was it sort of mildly annoying and unsettling?
You know, when there were peculiar smells in the room that I knew not to be conventionally accepted smells, and when there was lewd behavior and just the kind of explosive exuberance that I witnessed all throughout my childhood, only when it disturbed me because I had an exam or I wasn't being paid attention to, and there was this great energy in the living room, and there I was, you know, encrusted into my sheets reluctantly, it tended to annoy me. But for the most part, it was just a great way of making contact with people.
I sort of, like a lot of other people, I guess, who read the information that Sony put out, picked up on one particular comment that you made. You're talking about eccentric people around you who sort of gave you permission to do what you do now, but you added a sort of key phrase. You said, maybe it was expected of me. And I sort of thought I couldn't let this interview go without checking to make sure that you're not really a frustrated sheep farmer or architect or chiropractor or something.
That's really funny. I am a frustrated young man, but it has nothing to do with sheep or any of the other just absurd questions you've just asked me. No, I think had I done anything else, it would have been like Condé Nast Traveler, you know, where I write about all these fantastic resorts, and at the end of the little article it says, travel expenses paid for by some ministry or some foreign bureau. But I also have something to do with skills. I mean, you know, I don't really find myself having that many skills other than my ability to tell stories in song.
It would have been difficult for you not to have music as a very big part of what you do. I couldn't imagine that happening. Which brings us to another sort of interesting juncture. You, though this is your debut album, you're not any stranger to performance, not least of all with Chris Stills. Now, I mean, I know that I can see why the liaison would take place, but the question went through my mind, you come from somewhat diverse musical lineages. What sort of music did you play together?
When Chris and I had a band together, it was tied together by bonds of alcohol, youth, arrogance, and high school friendship, almost exclusively. And we knew very, very clearly in no uncertain terms that it was not going to last, that we would destroy each other by trying to keep the band together, that although we were generating interest in ourselves, it was stifling, and there was no way we could actually blossom into finding our own voices and forms of expression. But as I say, it was a form of apprenticeship, and it was great to have that partisanship and that feeling of belonging to a community with a friend as an ally.
You met him at the American school in Paris?
Yeah, I went to high school with him. We've known each other for, you know, 10 years now, longer.
Well, let's come forward a little bit to your CD. You're 26 years old, well connected, at the start of what looks like it's going to be an extremely successful career. And yet, Steve Lindsay says that you set out deliberately to make a CD dark and somber. Why not joyous and uplifting and exhilarating? Why dark and somber?
I don't know that dark and somber necessarily negates exhilarating. I am much, much more fascinated by the glow of a candle than the flashes of a strobe. And I think that the actual perfume of a flower comes out at night. So, you know, I set out to make what I found to be a sexy, somber, thoughtful, but accessible record, something that didn't necessarily follow any rules or roadmap, but had clear influences. I listened to a lot of Roxy Music Avalon and Peter Gabriel So while I was making this record, and a lot of other stuff that Danielle Lanois produced, and Steve Lindsay and I really shared a unique vision, I thought, and actually outdid my expectations for the record. You know, I didn't set out to make this melancholic and you know, to sort of mark with a careful pencil where to slit your wrist.
Well, I don't think it has that effect, but it's interesting. I just found that quite an interesting comment. Talking of Steve, before we get off that, I'm sort of partial to a drop of ouzo myself, so I was sort of wondering what the ouzo incident was that you referred to in your notes.
The ouzo incident, that dreaded day when I passed out on my producer's kitchen floor and was woken up to dogs licking my face, having no idea how I ended up in this godforsaken kitchen tile area. We, for the purposes of character building, one night downed almost a whole bottle of ouzo each to acquire a tone of frustration, angst, bitterness, and lunacy to do one of the vocals on the record, which was actually Quarterback, which is the story of a guy who, instead of being hurt by love, goes completely insane by love. And so, to be more convincing, ouzo was part of the equation.
One of the angry numbers on your tape. I guess there must have been dark moments when you sort of wondered if you were going to be able to match up to what everybody was expecting of you. Now that you've got this CD out and it's getting such great reviews, has it sort of now finally resolved any self-doubts you might possibly have had about your ability to make a mark in the business?
None whatsoever. No. No.
Still full of angst and concern.
You know, I think I'm riddled with anxiety like most other people who are putting out something that could be seen as a way for them to pick up the CD and come to swift and unforgiving judgment on me, to readily dismiss me or to embrace me, whatever it is. I feel like I'm young. I want to make a real statement. I want to contribute back to what was given to me, which is just this incredible vault of shining, glistening, beautiful music, and I want to give back to it. And until I'm recognized for having done that, it's all kind of speculative.
Well, you sort of now you've done it. You've actually created a whole new lot of expectations, haven't you, by putting out such a successful first record?
Well, I don't know if it's that successful. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, I can't see how.
Can you hypnotize me, please?
We'll work on it. Just watch this.
Okay.
Have you, I mean, you're still busy promoting it, but have you actually given any thought on how you're going to follow up this first CD?
It's going to be another entirely different batch of songs with uniquely compelling, wacky little stories that are all truthful, hurtful, inspiring, that can make lovemaking easier or any other thing that you can imagine.
It's all right, I'm going to buy it. You don't need to plug it anymore. That sounds... You said the magic words, make lovemaking easier.
Okay.
I was talking with Neil Finn last week, who, just like you, has just released his first solo album after working on it for 2 years. Neil and his group used to make up songs on the fly, even on stage during concerts, but it seemed to me, reading through your background, that for you it's a much more disciplined approach, sitting down in front of an instrument with a blank sheet, outlining a sketch, consulting, tempering. Does stuff ever come to you absolutely spontaneously, though, and you have to sit down and write it down right there and then?
Absolutely, yeah. And generally, there are the moments where it's the most inconvenient to write anything down.
Absolutely.
You're on the phone and on the toilet.
Yeah.
Or your, you know, other conceivably difficult moments to write.
Your bio talks about a passion for storytelling. Do you see that ever spilling over into writing fiction or even non-fiction?
Well, I do feel like I am writing a lot of non-fiction these days, and I feel like when the non-fiction is not interesting enough, I have to sort of dabble into the fiction aspect. As for prose, I see myself eventually compiling a body of work that I'll be able to refer to as a book one day. Book of poetry would be nice too. It's a little haunting and daunting and intimidating with a father like mine to write poetry. But I think given my youthfulness and my arrogance, I'll probably do that too. And traveling, and maybe like Montaigne, writing about my travels.
Well, at this moment, because of what is happening to you, you probably know exactly where you're going to be every day for the next little while, but when you do get a chance to get back to Paris and relax and sit around...
Which, incidentally, I know when that is.
Yeah, I thought you might have it on your schedule. Do you enjoy other things outside of music, like cooking, gardening, woodworking? I don't know. What, any other hobbies that you enjoy?
I hate cooking for one, but I love cooking for someone. And I certainly love ordering for them at a really delicious restaurant in an exotic, wonderful little place.
I suppose it's inevitable that somebody of your generation would be fairly wedded to computer technology. I mean, you skipped high school to create computer demos, and you talk about using lots of technological sounds and synthesizers. Do you get yourself involved with the internet?
You're well researched, man.
Oh, well, thank you. I try hard. Do you actually dabble with the internet, and where do you see that whole technology going?
No, I haven't. I haven't whatsoever dealt with the internet, and I don't have a great interest in it whatsoever either. But I like technology, and I like mixing mediums, juxtaposing them. I love, for example, New York, because you can see an old cathedral and this grotesque skyscraper next to it. I like surrealist art because it's surreal. And I like mixing a tiny little beatbox with an enormous drum kit in the chorus, or a little acoustic guitar that sounds like something folky, and then going into like this amazing delay chorus line. And I like inconsistencies in myself and others. I think that consistency is for those who have no imagination.
Well, I can only think, based on what I've heard of your first CD, that we're going to possibly have the opportunity to talk many times in the future as your career progresses. In the meantime, I'd like to congratulate you on what you've already done and wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very, very much, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.